Democrat in the White House next January is because of the Supreme Court. I think that the way that President Bush has looked at the court is as an extension of partisan advantage and ideological movement advantage. So the people he has appointed, most notably the last two, both of whom I voted against because I believe that they would tilt the court away from the center. I think we're strongest when we stay in the center, when we stay in the center as a country, because, you know, progress is usually made by convincing the center to move. And what we've seen with President Bush is he's trying to pull it back and turn the clock back. So the Roberts Court is on an ideological mission. And it's not just about a woman's right to choose. That's critically important. It's about economic authority. I would appoint people who understood the genius of the American system. Our Constitution has expanded as our hearts have expanded. Yesterday in Memphis, I couldn't help but be reminded that, you know, when our Constitution was written, neither Barack nor I were in it. I want justices who know that you have to constantly be balancing all the forces at work in America, but at the end of the day, don't end up siding with the most retrograde, reactive forces in America. Ask yourself, how can we move toward a more just society where people have a chance to pursue life and liberty and happiness as they define it? So I have no litmus test. I have an experience test. I have a temperament test. I want people who have lived, who have had the ups and downs, who have been knocked down and had to get up, who understand life is not easy. For most Americans, think about that's the thing. We have more than understands that.
What do you plan to do about the loss of water? What is water? The rivers are drying up.
That's an excellent question. And I like the color you have on. I think water is going to be one of the most contentious issues we face in the 21st century. Where we get it, how we preserve it, how we use it, who owns it. Some of you are seeing that already. You know, when Ann was up here, she was talking about drilling wells for her neighbor because her neighbor didn't have access to water for the farm next door. You might have followed what was going on between Georgia and Florida. Georgia in a big drought, Atlanta not getting enough water. We know the water wars throughout the West. We know the farmer salmon wars right here in Oregon. Water is a, unfortunately, scarce resource in too many places. I think we need to have a president who will take seriously the problems with water. Water has always been a local and state issue. And I think that's probably all to the good. But I believe we've got to take a broad look at our entire country because we've got to understand how we're going to conserve more water, how we're going to put incentives into everything from home building to office buildings to rain catchments to everything we can think of to do to preserve more of nature's water. And Oregon has a lot of that. We need to be smart about it, how we recover it, and we've got to work out the very legitimate differences among many who are claiming access to water. And this is not only an American problem, this is a global problem. I mean, those of us who care deeply about Darfur, you know that one of the reasons we are in this horrible genocidal situation is because the nomadic tribes have lost access to water for their cattle. And they've been encouraged by the government in Khartoum to move into the pastoral lands. It happens to have ethnic differences as well as lifestyle differences between, you know, cattle herders and farmers. They've been encouraged to seek, you know, greater pastures, which drive the farmers out. They've used obviously horrible tactics and bombing and rape and pillage and everything else. But there was a recent study which showed there is water underneath Sudan, which nobody had ever thought of or expected. how do we get to it? How do we get to it in the right way? How do we have some international process that leads to a compact about water? How do we encourage countries that have just polluted their water supplies for so many years to start protecting them? These are all issues that I would address as president, because it's the kind of over-the-horizon issue that if we deal with it now, we will have a better chance of preventing the kind of horrific crises and difficult conflicts that will come. Everyone knows that I was working on that when Bill first came into office back in 93 and 94, and we were not successful then, but we didn't give up. That's when I started working on, requiring the drug companies to test drugs to make sure they were safe on kids, and working on the children's health insurance program. So universal health care is a personal passion of mine, but it's also the morally and economically right action for our country. And we have two big problems: people who are totally uninsured, and people who have insurance, except the insurance company won't pay their doctors or their hospitals what they are billed in order to provide health care. So I'm offering this as a plan. Number one, if you have health insurance and you're happy with it, nothing changes. There's no disruption. But if you are uninsured or underinsured, I will open up the congressional plan. Congress has a good plan for itself. It provides 250 options. You actually pay for 75% of it. Members of Congress, their staffs, and federal employees can pick among these options depending upon what they need for their state of health and their family. The cost is on average lower than you're going to find from your employer or from the private marketplace. And I want you to be able to have the same choices as your member of Congress does. And for people who, we're going to provide health care tax credits. We're going to provide a mechanism to limit to a low percentage of your income what you ever have to pay for a premium. The average family health insurance policy cost in America today is $12,000. I want to get the cost down, which I believe we can. We get everybody in the system, and then limit the amount you ever have to pay. We're also going to regulate the insurance companies. It's illegal in our country, under our Constitution, to discriminate on the basis of race or gender or ethnic origin or religion, but insurance companies are perfectly free to discriminate against people on the basis of health and sickness. I'm going to take that away from them. They're going to have to